Welcome back to the shop. I woke up this morning at 5 o'clock to the shaking of Catherine saying, "There's water all over the garage floor." And yes, indeed, it's a little bit hard to see, but that's water. And it sort of comes across the shop. Got some cardboard on the ground. Anyway. So what's typically the problem, and most newer units have a float in there that will shut the unit off if it fills up too high. And this condensate drain, as best I can tell, is cleared out because I blew it out from both ends. But the water is leaking out before it gets a chance to get into here. And my task today is to try to figure out what is going on with that. And the first thing I can see is that there's a lot of residual schmoo in here. And I need to clean that out of here and figure out where this water is coming from. So I'm going to bring you along and let you know what I find out with this thing. It's not necessarily the easiest thing to film. I don't know if this will actually make it to YouTube. But if there is something about this that is of any benefit to anybody, I will post this. I'm going to get started by vacuuming this out. Now this should drain out of here, so I should be able to dump unlimited water in here. And I have the power off, so. Well, I went through and sprayed this out, vacuumed all the garbage out of here, and I think what happens is I have a tendency to scenario build and think of worst case scenarios. I think what happened is this line just got clogged up, and I was able to, luckily when they built this, there's a slip joint here, and then I can unscrew this fitting here. I was able to stick the garden hose in and blow the whole line out. There's another piece of pipe that goes on here, but you see all that schmoo on the outside? That horrible looking white stuff that was not there a minute ago. So that was all the garbage caught at the bottom of that line. So effectively my problem is solved in terms of the leaking. It continues to drain down just fine. But when I was doing the cleaning on here, I just went through and had some evaporator foam rinse. So I went ahead and cleaned it off and then rinsed that out. When I was going to reassemble it, I noticed some discoloration on these lines. There's going to be some rust. There's dissimilar metals. Aluminum and copper don't get along. But in addition to that, you see these witness marks on the back of the panel where it screws in? The steel in contact with this is causing some sort of corrosion. And I want to go ahead and stop that while I'm at it. So I think what I'm going to do is, in a well-ventilated area, I'm going to clean that off and spray it with some sort of maybe a rubberized undercoating or some sort of protection to separate, to give it a barrier, electro barrier, dielectric barrier, to keep it from reacting and shorting out and having this fail any earlier than it's already going to fail. It's probably well past its lifespan, but that's the kind of stuff that I'm going to look for and try to fix while I got it apart. So this is that panel. I went ahead and wire wheeled it very quickly. Then I painted it with some Rust-Oleum, and then I have this barrier that you put underneath the sill plate when you're doing walls. And it's just a foam barrier to keep the bottom plate dry. That should do a good job providing that dielectric break between the paint and this plastic on there. That should work well. While we're at it, there's two units. There's the inside unit is called the evaporator. The outside unit is the condenser. This is supposed to be in a nice and clean area without any vegetation growing around it. And that is not what I have, so I'm going to go ahead and clean this up. So now that I have that relatively debris free, I will come through and chemically mow this later on to prohibit any future growth. But right now I've got the power off to everything. I'm going to take the garden hose and just give it a good rinsing and get all the dirt and dust and everything out of the inside of this. Alright, never mind the cleanup that I still have to do out here, but now that we have the inside cleaned out, the condensate line cleaned out, the outside cleaned out, we have to test this puppy and see what it's doing. If you can see right there, hopefully you can see that, it says 85.1 degrees, and that is probably what the temperature of the inside of the house is right now. So I'm going to turn the air conditioner back on, and then ultimately what we want to see is find the temperature inside the house, and then there should be a 15 or 18 degree drop between what this is and what the inside is. I think it's 15 to 18. We'll have to go back and check. But that will be the determining factor on if this is functioning correctly. The temperature inside the house right now is 82.8 degrees and 69% humidity. So I've turned the power back on and nothing has changed yet. So what happens sometimes is the thermostat needs a couple minutes to sort of understand what's going on. And it does not, you don't want to short cycle the compressor on and off, so there's things built into it to try to minimize the short cycling. So give it 5 or 10 minutes sometimes and it will kick on eventually, so you just got to be patient. But right now we're looking at it says 84 degrees, whatever that temperature is, and we want it to come down to about 67, 68 degrees, and then we'll know it's functioning properly. I have my little air mover drying that off. And right now we've got, you see that 64 degrees. These little, again, these thermometers are probably the most important thing to have. So the 64 degrees inside, you know, that gives us the good delta, the good change, because ultimately this is a pump. And what we've done by cleaning all this stuff out is we're pumped. There's no such thing as cold. There's only the absence of heat. So we're taking the heat from inside and pumping it outside. And now that we've cleaned these like radiators, these heat exchangers off, it should be more effective at pumping that out. And it can only pump so much heat at a time, and that's a relative difference. That's the delta T, delta meaning change, T temperature. So the difference between the air, relatively speaking, let's say that's 84 degrees in the house, it's pumping 20 degrees of heat away. And as the house gets to 70, this will get to 50. And as the house gets to 60, well, it won't get that cold. But anyway, it's that relative difference between the inside temperature and then the returning air temperature. And without a thermometer like this, you really don't know what's going on, because you can argue with your wife about whether it's hot or cold or whatever. But you can say, look, this is what it is. But there's also one other factor, and that's humidity. And we saw earlier that it was 69% humidity. This is eventually going to remove moisture out of the air, send it through the condensate line, and get it outside the house. And the standard thing that I know about, 75 degrees, 50% humidity is good. Humidity lower than that will cause static electricity issues and can be annoying. So that's it. I'm not an AC guy. You know, rip me in the comments if you want. I'm just a homeowner and I'm bringing you along for the ride. So I hope this helps somebody. Oh, let's do one last thing before we're done. So I took a picture of the plate on my air compressor, or the outside unit, the condenser, and I found the capacitor, the start-run capacitor for it, and this will often have the compressor and the fan. So I don't know if it's a start run, a motor run, and fan start switch. Okay. So this is something that goes bad frequently, and for $21 it's worth it to me to go ahead and buy this and put this on the shelf, and then I should be set for all summer, and if it blows out I will be ready to put a new one in. Now hopefully this comes across. For $10 you could get 5 of these little temperature things. They're indispensable. And then the other thing you might want to get is called a hygrometer. It will have, they're also dirt cheap. You get the hygrometer and it has the temperature and the relative humidity on there, and I think those are the 2 devices that would be most helpful if you're trying to determine how functional your air conditioner is. So that's it. I hope this helps. Thanks for watching.